All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for another clan war between RTK and ODM. This is going to be part 2 from the earlier one on Friday. So this is going to be our, I guess, traditional clan format. So it is going to be 4 1v1s, then it's going to be followed up by a couple 2v2s, and then the finale is going to be a 3 versus 3. So it should be a lot of good fun with that. So for our lineup for today, it's not going to be we're not going to be going for the 4 1v1s right after each other. We're going to be doing 2 of those. We're going to be doing one of the 2v2s back to the 1v1s, just in terms of scheduling and how things have gone. So for who's playing what, we are going to be, I'll go over that real quick as well. You can see that from the thumbnail, but also one more thing. There we go. So we'll have Vicious Satsuma on the Greenskins versus Carl Harmon on the Lizardmen for our first series. And then we are going to be getting into the next one with this Prussian Prince on Bretonia versus Lupi on the Dark Elves. After that, we will be getting into our first 2v2, which is going to be Human Boy, Yes Yes, and Platypus on the Counts and Tomb Kings versus Rizel and Newport on the Vampire Coast and Empire. After that, we're getting back to the 1v1, so Yawning Firefly on the Lizardmen versus Croissant Albert on Chaos. We'll have Felix on the Empire versus Showtime on the Tomb Kings. And our last 2v2 will be Yumeis and Vicious Satsuma on the Wood Elves and Chaos. And then Carl Harmon and Showtime will be on Norska and the Greenskins. And our final 3v3 will be Human Boy, Yes Yes, Yawning Firefly, and Vicious Satsuma on Skaven, Vampire Coast, and High Elves. And we'll have Zyphos, Croissant Albert, and Lupi on the Wood Elves, Bretonia, and High Elves on the ODM side. And that is going to be our lineup for this clan war. Both sides are ready for our first game, so we will be getting right on into that. Everything is all set. So it should be some good series today. Yes, the first one was just the practice round. But yeah, just for a little recap on the scoring as well, it is going to be 1 point for all the 1v1s, 2 points for each of the 2v2s, and 3 points for the final 3v3. Alright, now I'll switch over to the scene. And both sides going to be loading on in. So I know this is definitely a matchup that at least Satsuma has practiced very heavily in. So no doubt he's going to be having just the tools for the job. And I know Carl Harmon is very proficient on the Lizardmen anyways. And ooh, I don't know if he's going to be prepared for this one though. So for Carl Harmon's Lizardman force, it is going to be a very heavy kite. So we do have Razordawn hunting packs. We have 4 of those, and we have 4 salamander hunting packs as well. It is going to be a very, very heavy kite build. So then we also have 2 skink cohorts with javelins. We have 2 Cold Riders, and then it is going to be a couple more just regular skink cohorts. For the Lord, it is going to be a Krokgar on foot. So Krokgar is going to be bringing, it looks like we have Hand of the Gods, and then he just has his Cold-Blooded. So very trimmed down version of Krokgar, and then a Skink Priest of Beasts going to be rolling in with just the transformation of Kadan. But man, oh man, this is going to be a very funny build here. I don't know if Satsuma is going to be quite ready for this. And speaking of Satsuma, let's see what he's got to contend this. Is we do have some skirmish as well, but it is going to be a little outgunned here, as we do have some Forest Scum Spider Riders on the 2 flanks here for a bit of poison. We have some goblins, some orc boys in that front line, some savage orc biggins as well for the bulk of that infantry. We do have 1 unit of Stone Trolls, which has to be exceptionally careful with what the Lizardmen have to offer, and a Goblin Great Shaman going to be coming on in. Not a whole lot of spells on this one, just going to be bringing Sneaky Stabbin'. We have the Arcane Conduit, Crown of Command, and Don't Even Try It. For the 2 spellcasters, we do have an Orc Shaman with Brain Bursta and a Giant River Troll Hag rolling on in with Spirit Leech, and also coming in with Mither. And then in the back line, we do have a Dose 8 Peak Loonies. There we go. So that is going to be it for both sides. So I'll let them know they are ready to start. So this is going to be a rather interesting build here for sure, as, yeah, this is definitely not like anything that Satsuma's been practicing against as of late. So it is going to be definitely trying the build out, putting it through a few stress tests. And this is going to be, oof. Yeah, definitely those Spirit Leeches are definitely going to be very helpful in dealing with all of these Salamanders, but there's just so many, and you only have one Spirit Leech, so going to have to be able to weather the storm to an extent, but definitely the Giant River Trollhag is going to be wading forward, getting that overcasted Spirit Leech, and is going to be hitting these Razordon hunting packs, and it is going to be taking off a mighty amount of health off of them. And you just see those units just peeling off, dropping a nice little trail of them in the sands, as now the Greenskins are probably going to want to be pulling them back themselves, just have to be dodging as many of these shots as possible. Now for these hunting packs, that is actually possible to do that with the Skirmish Cav. They're fairly quick. Now the Razordons, on the other hand, they do have a lot quicker fire, and it's going to be a lot harder to kind of avoid most of it, especially on this very flat map. They have a pretty low arc of fire anyways most of the time. Sometimes they do arc it pretty high, but yeah, the first barrage is going to be opening up, doing a nice bit of damage to both of these units, but overall that they were able to tank those shots fairly decently, most of them just getting knocked down, getting right back up, and they are going to be getting into the Razordon hunting packs here with a nice charge from the Force Scout Spider Riders, and a nice Brain Bursta hitting right into the middle of those Skink cohorts on this flank. And the rest of the flanks, though, is going to be starting to get some engagements here and there. Pretty much all of these Force Scout Spider Riders are just being used to just kind of delay at this point, but they are not going to be winning those engagements. But it is going to be buying time for all these Savage Orcs to get close enough to prevent these guys from firing anymore. But the Salamanders do have some nice bit of speed, so they are all going to be pulling back after the initial engagement, taking a bit of damage here and there. But the Greenskins are in hot pursuit, and we do have a Mither going down on these Razordon hunting packs, allowing the Stone Trolls and the like to just get right on into them. They should be doing quite a bit of damage, might even be able to rout them off, but all of the mobility on the Greenskins' right flank is taking quite a bit of damage so far. Both of these Force Scout Spider Riders have been routed off, and the rest of the, all of the Salamanders are all pulling back out of reach of the Greenskin forces and are going to be turning and firing once again. We do get that transformation of Kadan going down, going to be trying to get on top of probably some of the characters that are condensed on this flank. But looks like instead is going to be shooting for, I believe there's the Orc Shaman over there, so that is going to be its target of the day, as the Orc Shaman does kind of stream ahead of the rest of its Savage Orcs on that flank. But most of the power of the Greenskin army is focused solely in this left flank here, trying to chase down these three remaining actually one of these is the Cold Wind Riders, the two Salamanders, and this Razordon is going to be getting routed off and should be getting chased, but all of these Salamanders should be able to peel off the chasing Greenskins on that flank. Now if we swing on over to the other side, a lot of the Salamanders, again, are getting caught out by the Greenskins, and we do have some returning Force Scout and Spider Riders, but the Cold Wind Riders trying to just clean things up, free up all these Salamanders to be firing for as long as possible. But so far, it has been probably going fairly well for the Greenskins. The Salamanders have been pretty quiet, been forced really to just continually run away from the approaching Greenskins, and this Orc Shaman just continuing to run from the Feral Manticore as well. Just has a nice little speed, definitely have it on the board, very helpful here, but a little lapse of micro can be causing that Orc Shaman to stop running away, and is going to be getting attacked into the rear by that Feral Manticore, and it might actually cause it does get terrified, it might end up routing, but it should survive. That Feral Manticore is on the last legs of its summon there, so should be dissipating momentarily. And once again, all of these Salamanders slowly getting rid of it and hitting, and actually that is, they don't even try it going down on these guys, so they do get terrified by that Goblin Great Shaman on the Rakdrak Spider, and is going to be turning tail and running, routing naturally, and all of these Razordons on the far flank getting engaged with that Giant River Trollhag is going to be getting some damage done there. They do have those Skink cohorts, and that Giant River Trollhag is getting pretty low in terms of leadership, which being, I think that's pretty damn close to the white line there, could very well end up routing, and definitely wants those Spirit Leeches, especially with what is left on the Lizardman side of things, though the bounce power is shifting into the Greenskins' favor, despite the fact that actually, well, the Lizardmen are being pushed right up against that white line, and they are running out of room to just continually kite away, and there's still a bunch of ammunition left on all of these Salamanders. They just haven't had the space necessary to really get the shots in that they need, and all of the, the Savage Orc Bagans are still going strong. And even like the Stone Trolls and the Ragnarok Spider are still at full health right now, and they definitely need to be a focus of a lot of this damage. I mean, the Salamander hunting packs, they have so that damage against like the Stone Trolls, for example, they will absolutely melt them if they're able to get a lot of shots into them. And they finally are getting some volleys going that direction, but they are definitely running out of that space to continually do that as the Greenskins push them back and back and back. Giant Roach Troll Hag does survive, does get a... Oh man, that Hand of the Gods just taken down that Giant Roach Troll Hag and makes it completely go down. I'm not actually sure what caused that final bit of damage to be done, but down goes that Giant River Troll Hag, falling to the ground and rising no more. That Hand of the Gods doing a ton of damage, but now Krokgar is very far away from the rest of his army, which is now getting chased off the edge of the map, finally getting cornered into the backside of this map here, so completely out of space to run, and they're going to be trying to skirt around the edge of the approaching Greenskins, but more and more of them just continually are able to catch these Razordons, these Salamander hunting packs, and I think that is going to be just about it. And the Greenskins are going to be pulling through. Very interesting build for sure by the Legerdman side of things, but it did not last, as they just kind of ran out of room, and they just spent most of that game running. Though it's definitely a build I have definitely not seen for quite some, or at least not to this extent. You usually can see some like Salamander hunting packs, maybe some Razordons, but not to that number, so I think that may have been part of it. They just didn't have enough delay tools to hold back the green tide. But yeah, that was something for sure. But that is going to be our first game. So let's go over the values real quick here. The Stone Trolls actually racking up 1100, and they were at full health at the end of that. They were getting avoiding all of that incoming fire and dishing it out and then some. The Force Gum Spider Riders, I think initially they just charge forward into those Razordons, and the Salamanders just, that initial pause, which disrupted that initial volley, probably really did help the Greenskins here, because they avoided a ton of damage on that initial charge. Giant River Troll Hag with those Spirit Leeches did some nice well, but man, that Hand of the Gods at the end completely deleted her. But that was pretty much all the damage that Krokgar was able to generate. I just kind of quickly go through all this. I mean, Cold Wind Riders did alright, but pretty much all of the Razordons, the hunting packs, nothing really stood out in this engagement here. But that is going to be our first game, so let's switch on back, update the scorecard, and then we'll get into our next one. All right. So RTK will take the first game. So they'll be leading 1-0 going into the next one. And this will be Bretonnia versus Dark Elves. Satsuma, nice try. But a very fun match for sure to start things off. So our next one will be pulling in Prussian Prince and Loopy. This should be space for you guys. This next map will be Oakenhammer. Alright, let's see if I have Loopy on my friends list. You might not be able to see the lobby. Does not look like it. Okay, yep, just sent you my friend code Loopy, so send that invite over, and then you'll be able to get into the lobby so we can get in for our second game. Alright, so this one is going to be Bretonnia Dark Elves, which I do believe is going to be Bretonnia favored. We'll see just how well Loopy's able to play the Dark Elves. I mean, he is very proficient with the Elven factions, so I'm sure he's going to be putting on a very good show for us today. So let's get him invited to the lobby. There we go. So he should be in momentarily, and we should have a build all ready and set for this matchup, so we shouldn't have any downtime, or at least not too much of it. So everyone is in the lobby, and we'll be getting underway for our next set momentarily. And yeah, I mean, for this particular matchup, I mean, I've seen Prince play this one a few times. Lewin, I think, is a fairly common pick. There's also, I mean, you probably expect to see the Trebs, but with the Trebs, of course, you're going to be running into, if there's the Bolt Throwers on the other side. So, I mean, the Bretonnia versus Dark Elf, you're going to have a bit of mobility, though the Dark Elves really can't contend the Bretonnia cavalry in a head-to-head combat, but they do have Scourge Runners, so that is going to be one of the other tools that they have that will trade very well into Bretonnian Cav. That's one of their better targets to be shooting into. But we just kind of have to wait and see. I mean, if Kala Hardman's army is anything to go off of, we might be in for another treat. But I'd be expecting maybe a little bit more of a traditional lineup than what we just saw. But that was a fantastic way to start things off. All right, Loopy is ready to go. Just waiting on Prussian Prince, and then we'll be underway. All right, looks like Prince is ready as well, so we'll roll on in to our next game. Should be good fun. And then after this game, we'll be getting into our 2v2, so if you are going to be in that, be ready to go, and then we can get going as quickly as possible. So that will be Counts, Tomb Kings versus Beastmen and Empire. Actually, I may have said Coast earlier on, but yeah, Rizal is going to be playing Beastmen in that. Alright, that's set. Now we can switch over to this scene. Both sides are loaded on in. So, for Loopy on the Dark Elves, he is going to be giving us a little treat, though, as Malice Darkblade is going to be making an appearance on the stream. He is going to be bringing Zarkan. He does have the Demon's Curse as well, so he can minus 16 leadership, minus 24 melee defense in an AoE round him, though it does cause a little bit damage to himself. He does have the Blood Price, which gives a nice little bit of damage resistance, base weapon damage increase, and armor piercing, of course, doing more damage to himself. But all that damage will be replenished and then some with Zarkan, but when you do transform into Zarkan, you do take quite a bit of damage, and he does have the Warp Sword of Cain, though, which does give him that regen when he is engaged in melee, plus a little extra ward save to top things off. For the infantry, it is going to be Dread Spears across that front line. We do have a Sorceress of Fire, bringing Fireball, Cascading Fire Cloak, and Burning Head. Oops, just kind of slide over that. So yeah, Cascading Fire Cloak gives a nice little buff to the armor piercing and melee defense. So that armor piercing will help get through some of that more heavily armored cavalry. We do also have some Witch Elves, which will hopefully kind of rampage them into your Dread Spears. We do also have a couple Shades with Great Swords, no less. So again, they have that armor piercing, and they do have that bonus versus infantry when engaged in melee. And then Cold One Knights with the Slaanesh's Harvesters for the Cavalry Corps, one of which is actually the Knights of the Ebon Claw, the Dread Knights ROR. They do have that Murderous Mastery, armor piercing, all of that good stuff to deal with the Bretonnian Cav. Now for, we're going to be seeing a little, we'll swing back over to that before things start off, but for Prince's side, we do have the Fey Enchantress, double Paladins up in the sky, so the Fey Enchantress going to be coming in. It looks like we have Shield of Thorns and Earthblood, kind of heal things up and keep those Cav engagements a little bit more in their favor. Not really going for any of that regrowth, though it doesn't need it. Instead of going to be going for just that AoE heal. So we have Knights of the Realm across the board, a couple questing Knights, and the Companions of Quenelle. So 3 questing knights, 2 Knights of the Realm. For the range units, we do have Peasant Bowmen with Pox arrows, a couple of fire arrows mixed in for a little extra damage, and especially if there was any like a Hydra or something. Well, actually, no, the Hydra doesn't have that. It's just that kind of burst heal, but they have a couple of Spearmen at Arms and then just Peasant mobs for that front line. So very wide, pretty traditional, I mean, Bretonnia build. I mean, you're not going to be seeing a whole lot of variants, but no Trebs for Prince on this side. So just to swing back over to, so it looks like we are having that ODM from Loopy here, going to be giving us a little message before he reorganizes his troops. But it looks like ODM is definitely going to be having some fun today. Be definitely looking forward to seeing some of the builds then, because it looks like that is how they're going to be playing a lot of these matchups. So it should be some wild picks indeed. Might be throwing a few wrenches into the plans of RTK and what they were planning on building, seeing what they've been doing so far. Both well, I mean, Prince must be a little AFK here. Just going to see where he is. Oh, okay, so Prince said he'd be right back in a couple of minutes. So, alright, so Loopy has reorganized his army here into a more back to his traditional build here, just given that message earlier on, and then back to the, I guess, the normal deployment as it is. I guess, yeah, no Favor of the Fae, no Chalice on the Fae Enchantress. But yeah, it's going to come pretty much down to that cav engagement. You do have the numbers on the Bretonnian side. Of course, the Knights of the Ebon Claw could be a foe to be facing. I mean, the Cold Knights do have the bonus versus large. But the Knights of the Ebon Claw do have that Murderous Mastery versus the Murderous Prowess. So they do get a little bit additional buff to their stats versus the regular ones. So we do a little comparison between the two of those. Murderous Prowess, a little less duration too, so it's only 90 seconds on the Murderous Prowess versus the Knights of the Ebon Claw, which do have 120 seconds on that. So just that little longer buff, as long as they do get those engagements. And of course, the Slaanesh Harvesters do have that Soul Stealer, the bound version of that, which will again help that cav engagement just a little bit more if they are able to get to the Bretonnians to blob up on top of them. And of course, Word of Pain, that minus 30 accuracy and minus 40 melee attack is really the biggest one. So they definitely have all the tools to really debuff the opposing Bretonnian side. And we're still, looks like we're still waiting on Prince. Hopefully he does get back pretty soon so we can get things rolling for our next fight. Yeah, just 30 seconds extra, but still, that is quite a bit more. Just being able to have all of these buffs for that time, especially if they are constantly engaged. I know with cav engagements, that's not always going to be as easy to do, but at least it opens up that window so you're able to get that cav engagement. It's a lot harder to kind of stay away from all of that once it does pop. Getting that all maxed out once they do hit that kill market, especially with all the peasants. That's going to be pretty early on in the fight by my estimates. All of the peasant mobs themselves, I mean, if we take a look, they all have 120 each, and when you have 5 of them, you're going to be hitting that pretty early on, especially with all of the rest of the troops. So if you look at the troop counts in and of itself, Bretonnia has 1,300, so hitting that 528 shouldn't be too hard to hit it nice and early. And it does also allow Bretonnia to maybe try and get that out a little early, and then before those cav engagements really get underway, so you kind of waste that Murderous Prowess and Murderous Mastery, if it at all possible, for the Bretonnians. Now, hopefully Prince is around soon. Oh, looks like... Okay, Prince is now back, so now he's getting that deployment underway, so we should be getting this next fight in pretty soon. So yeah, we'll have the 2 spears on the flanks, and then all of that peasant bowmen in that center. So more of this did kind of happen 2 days ago on Turin's channel, but this one is going to be a little bit of a different style, because we do have a couple team games, so it is going to be 4 1v1s, 2 2v2s, and a 3v3 to wrap things up, where the one on Turin's channel was all 1v1s. So a little bit different. Should be good fun, though, because having those two team games has been kind of what we've been doing for all the clan wars that we've had in the past since, like, I mean, for quite some time. I started casting them in like September, I think, and all of them have been under the same format. So now it looks like both sides are ready to go. Oops, get rid of that. Prince is ready. Loopy's been ready. So let's get underway. Oops. Yep, Clan War 2 Electric Boogaloo. Alright, Bretonnia taking the initial advance. Of course, the Dark Elves going to be advancing just the same here, none of which have any artillery on either side. And the Shades, though, going to be stocked for the time being until they get in range. But right now, Prince is not going to be seeing that, so he's going to be thinking that these Paladins have pretty free reign. But eventually, he will be spotting these Shades here. And seeing no range at all from the Dark Elves is going to be a little interesting, especially considering... normally, you would expect to see at least some Scourge Runners, considering how good they are against Cav. But of course, these Shades are going to be able to help in those engagements as well, especially considering they're going to be able to get nice and close. We do have Malice and the Sorcerer Fire getting a little far ahead. Sorcerer Fire, the Fireball, not going to have any really good targets to be going after for those. Probably expecting to see some Trebuchets, but nothing to really be sniping out with that. But the Burning Head and the like will be definitely helping against all the Peasant Bowmen, and the Cascading Fire Cloak will help with those Questing Knight, or all the Cav engagements in particular. But the Dark Elves are going to be heavily outnumbered, and they are going to be very, very careful. The Shades are going to be spotted now by the Bretonnians, and they're going to have to be pretty careful. And here is that Burning Head, going to be going right through those Peasant Bowmen. Going to be taking off about a third of their health, going to be getting them wavered, and then that is going to be continuing right on down the line. And if Prince doesn't see it, it might be hitting these Peasant Bowmen, but he is going to be spotting it, and he's going to be pulling these Peasant Bowmen back, dodging that extended fire there. And the rest of the engagements, though, is going to be underway. Peasant mobs not really going to be lasting too long, even if it is just against Dread Spears. And these Knights from getting a charge in, but they have taken quite a bit of damage early on. And in comes the Dark Elf Cav coming right through the center of the formation, looking to try and get some charges off on to the Bretonnian Cav, as they're just going to be in hot pursuit of these companions of Quenelles, but they are going to be turning their attention elsewhere, as that Soul Stealer did go down, hitting a lot of the Bretonnian units. So it hits those Questing Knights, hits a lot of the Peasant mobs, and it did hit those Knights of the Realm as well, and they did get rampage in by these Witch Elves that are stuck in this engagement. And it looks like we do have Malice Darkblade. Did he... No, that was not. That was just using the blood price. I thought that may have been the Zarkan transformation a little early on, but getting that additional base weapon damage, all of that resistance as well, especially with both of these Paladins jumping in, it is going to allow them to tank that fairly well and be able to dish out that damage and then some. Looks like we have another Burning Head. This time it is going to be dodged once more by these Peasant Bowmen as they do push forward, but that does put them right into the jaws of these Dread Spears and a lot of the Knights of the Ebon Claw. Balance power, though, is in Bretonnia's favor early on, as the engagements, while the cavalry have taken a lot of lots of damage. Like the Questing Knights are pretty low. They are all routing. This entire core of the Bretonnians is getting pushed back. All of the rest of, there's just the numbers that the Bretonnians have for the cavalry is really just wearing down the Dark Elves here. As you can look in, you see where is Malice. So Malice has been taking a little bit of damage here. Looks like the Knights of the Ebon Claw are routing off and are on just slivers of HP. Only 4 models of those left. The Cold One Knights themselves have taken quite a bit of damage, and the Celestial Harvesters are not going to be able to stand up, engage in melee. However, both of the Shades are still alive and free. They still have a lot of ammunition left, and it's going to be very, very helpful. And it does look like, if I can't see what exactly is going on, so that is the Reaper of Souls, which I do believe is Zarkan's ability. So he must have transformed into Zarkan in here. There he is. So he has transformed Zarkan in all of his glory, but that is going to mean he's going to be slowly killing himself over the rest of the fight. And so pretty much Bretonnia, they just have to be very cautious around him, though with him on his Cold One, he is of course going to have that speed to be able to chase things down. But of course the Paladins, both of them doing quite a bit of damage, and with the Fae engaged as well. But we do have, the Companions, Quenelles, all this cavalry just surrounding Zarkan, really kind of pinning him in, and that is going to be now freeing up all of the backlines. So all these Shades are now going to be getting harassed by these Questing Knights, and there's still plenty of Peasant Bowmen who are going to be firing away at the Dread Spears. And it looks like there was going to be a Fireball cast trying to go right through that Peasant Bowman line, and it is going to go right down the pipe there, perfectly lined up to do a lot of damage if those Peasant Bowmen do not end up turning. And it does look like Zarkan, though, is getting very low, and that is going to be just about all she wrote for Zarkan there. Going to be finally succumbing to the madness, and down he goes. And I think with that is going to be it for the Dark Elves, as the Bretonnians going to be finishing things off in pretty strong fashion. They still have quite a bit left there. I mean, the companions of Quenels are quite healthy at this point, not really anything left to really keep them at bay from the shades. And I think that is just about it. Fae, very healthy. Paladins as well. And as they charge in, Fae is going to be draining down the last of the infantry and the shades. Questing Knights going to be charging in. Looks like the Fae and Paladin, though, going to be chasing down that Sorceress of Fire instead. And that's just about it. And I think that is going to be army losses. Bretonnia takes game 2. And that will be that. So let's go over the after battle real quick. And then we'll be getting into our first 2v2 of the day. So that'll be some good fun for that indeed. So for the Bretonnia side, Fae Enchanters getting about 1,500. Both the Paladins, one of the Paladins doing very well, getting almost 1,500 on that one. Most of that damage, I think, was directed entirely towards Malice, who unfortunately only did get about 500 for his value, even with transforming into Zarkin. There's just way too many Bretonnians around him. I mean, having both the Paladins, the Fae, all those Questing Knights surrounding him without any of the support of his cavalry really made it kind of hard for him to do what he needed to. Questing Knights, or at least the Companions, did very well at 1,200. The rest of the other Questing Knights pretty much got shot to pieces. I mean, even the Knights of the Realm did quite a bit better than them at 1,200. The Knights of the Edmaclaw, a very expensive ROR unit, unfortunately was not able to do all too well, such as Harvesters. The Cold One Knights did all right, and then the Shades themselves actually did some pretty decent work themselves, 1,800 on those guys. But then it just wasn't enough to hold back the tide of the Bretonnians with all of those Dread Spears and even the Sorcerer of Fire. Enough dodges on the Burning Heads there to really kind of make those Winds of Magic a little bit more useless. Hey Davina, welcome to the stream. So that is going to be it for our second one. We'll switch back over to the main scene and we'll get into the first 2v2. Yeah, Loopy thought that Malice would be able to beat a Paladin or two, but unfortunately that was not the case, as Malice definitely fell a little short on that. So let's update the scorecard, there's that. So now RTK is going to be up 2-0. This is going to be our first 2v2. It is going to be worth 2 points. So we have Platypus in, and then it's going to be Human Boy on the counts. And then we'll have the ODM forces on the Beastmen and the Empire. So let's see, for this map, it is going to be on Blue Reach River. So a very wide open map. Definitely going to be providing, I mean, if the Tomb Kings want to be going a little bit heavier in the range, of course that is going to mean that, like for the Beastmen, for example, their Vanguard, of course, on that note, there is plenty of Vanguard deployments across the map here. Yeah, Felix, I don't think Malice is the worst Lord in the game. I think Tretch is going to be holding that title for quite some time. But Malice, he has his use. Well, I say he has his uses. He really doesn't. Not on the Dark Elf roster. It's just that having a Lord that wants to kill itself, it usually doesn't bode too well. Alright, so, okay, we got Newport in, then we're just waiting on Rysel. We'll be on the Beastmen. Oh, and I do have to change the funds as well. Funds are going to be 10,000, so that is another thing for the builds here. We'll go over the quick 2v2 rules in just a second, so everyone is in. So for the 2v2 rules, it is 10,000 funds per player. It is a max of 3 heroes per team. So you have no duplicate named characters, so you can't have like 2 Felixes or anything like that. Max of 3 summoning spells abilities per team. So, I mean, for like the counts, mostly it's for like Count Skaven and stuff like that. So you're not just constantly spamming just tons and tons of summons. Max 1 net spell ability per team. So that includes 60% slow. So like things like Mither. So you can't just be constantly netting down everything. And then minimum of 600 models per team, which I don't think we've ever gotten anywhere close to having 600 models, but that's just to kind of cull some of the more toxic playstyles. Hey, Ronan, welcome as well. All right, looks like both sides are ready to go already, so that's a good sign. And both sides ready. Let's roll on in. So the Count's Tomb Kings has definitely been a combination that we've been seeing pretty often in these clan wars. They definitely have a lot of synergies between the two, especially allowing the Tomb Kings to be healed up by those like invocations of Nehek and stuff like that. And there's a few other items and abilities that allow healing across the factions, which is definitely a good benefit when you have those large constructs, which generally lack that healing, when they are just kind of relying on that passive lore from the lore of Nehekara. Yep, no dwarfs today, unfortunately. So loading on in. Switch the scene on over. And just wait for both sides to complete their loading. See if we can see. Can't see any of that just yet. Yeah, Malice is probably one of the more, I guess, unique lords that they've added as of late. Having that transformation, all of its abilities, pretty nice. But unfortunately, yeah, I think Loopy meant lore friendly there. But yeah, definitely would like to see as many lords more viable instead of seeing like always the same lords, like always seeing like only Marathi or only seeing like just the Fae. To have more balance between them would be quite fun to be having. Yep, Beastman is teaming up with the Empire. Oh, not very lore friendly with the Beastman teaming up with the Empire. Yes, indeed, that is going to be the case. Hopefully, okay, so both sides finally loaded on in. So we'll go over the armies real quick here. So for the RTK forces on the Tomb Kings and the Vampire Counts, in that I did see some Sepulchral Stalkers, but where did they go off to? So for the mobility, we do have some Skeleton Horse Archers. We have 4 units of those. We have Sepulchral Stalkers and the Eyes of the Desert. So they do have some very nice ranged. The Eyes of the Desert do get that poison on the range as well, so additionally slowing them down, allowing them to get even more shots off, and their range is really where they're strongest at. Once they are engaged in melee, they're heavily armored, well, not really heavily armored, they're armored, they have bonus versus large and armor piercing, but still when they are engaged in melee, they generally just struggle quite a bit to really deal damage, and they don't last all too long. There, a bunch of Skeleton Archers for some range, and then for the Vampire Counts, we do have a bunch of zombies for that front line, and some Skeleton Warriors, 3 Graveguard as well, one of which is the Stearnsman, which will be lasting quite some time, and then we have Black Knights, 3 units of those. And for the lords and heroes on both sides, we do have the Lich Priest of Light coming in with, looks like that is Foz protection, I want to say. So Briona's Time Warp, which gives that 24 speed and melee attack. The melee attack is the most important thing, and that is an AoE. Also having the Canopy, which does give 66% magic resist to self or any allies in range. We have Cetra, the Imperishable, and he is going to be benefiting from that healing, which we'll be going over some of that in just a bit. So he has the Blessed Blade of Atra, he has the Niru's Incantation of Protection, and the Dejaf's Incantation of Cursed Blades, and that is going to be it for his spell. So he will be getting that passive healing with that lore, but most of that healing is going to be coming from Isabella von Karstein, because she does have, if I can find her again. So where did Isabella go? There we are. So the Blood Chalice of Bathory is that ability I was talking about earlier on. So we'll be able to give that pretty much 2,500 healing to any Lord or Hero, and it does have a 2-minute cooldown, but it is unlimited uses. So especially against Cetra, that is going to be exceptionally helpful, being able to top him off when he is on his Sphinx. She does also have the Master of Beguilement, minus 40 melee attack. Raised Dead, we have Van Hel's Dance Macabre, as well as the Invocation of Nehek. We do have a White King bringing in with Scab's Wraith, and a Necromancer as well with that Forbidden Rod, Master of the Dead, and the Unholy Lodestone. giving even more passive healing in that AoE with that Vigor Mortis +5 melee attack and melee defense. So pair that with the Briones Time Warp, definitely going to be given that front line just a little bit more teeth to that engagement. Now for the Beastmen and the Empire, they're going to be sitting right in the middle of their deployment zone, so they do have triple great cannons, definitely going heavy on the artillery. We have one unit of the silver, well, only one unit of silver bullets. For the front line, it is going to be a mix of Beastmen and Empire. So we have some Spearmen. We do have a couple of Goreherd and then some Ungor Spearmen on the far flanks. For the center anchor, it is going to be Volkmar the Grim on his chariot. Going to be unbreakable. Going to be a powerhouse against both of these factions here. So he has his Bound Banishment, Grand Shield of Faith, and the Soulfire Bombardment. Of course, he does have that regen with the Jade Griffin. And for the Lord on the Beastman side, it is going to be Morgar the Shadowgave. So he does have all of his Chaos Spawn summons, trying to get, you know, they can be shutting down like the Sepulchral Stalkers, and the Archers will be helpful for that. And of course, he does also have the Call of Violence, which gives +16 leadership around him. For the spellcasting, we do have a Brace Shaman of Wild, who does have the dagger, giving a little bit extra melee regen or power recharge and power reserves in melee, and then the Traderkin and Viletide for a little bit magical damage on that side. So, but on the other side, there is going to be that magic resistance on the Lich Priest, so that will help against those Viletide. But I mean, you have to be really quick on the draw, knowing when and where that's going to be casting, because Viletide is such a quick cast. Some Minotaurs mixed in. We do have some Halberdiers as well, and then I think there's just a few more range units here and there. But all of the Beastmen and the Empire forces are going to be turning their attention to this tree line, as the Counts and Tomb Kings are going to be using that tree line as cover as they do approach. But they still are going to be having to bridge the distance between that tree line, as the cannons will be singing for that entire distance. And the Empire does have a bit of mobility themselves, so they have some Empire Knights. I guess they have one Empire Knight, and that is going to be it, relying more on their gunpowder. And there is that Bright Wizard coming in with the Flaming Sword and with Burning Head for its 2 spells. So definitely against like Counts and the Undead, or Counts and the Tomb Kings, definitely having that Lore of Fire, very, very helpful. Cannon's going to be trying to hit these Black Knights, and Black Knights trying to juke and dodge, as that they're going to be kind of just baiting out as many of the shots as possible. But so far, the RTK forces are just going to be using the tree line for cover until they can get as close as they can to just have so they have less distance. But really, I don't think that's going to make a whole lot of change, because if you look at the fire arcs here, the cannons are going to be firing right at the edge of that tree line. So that's pretty much just going to be a wash in terms of trying to get that positioning. They're still going to have to go through the entirety of those Great Cannon range. So at some point, they're just going to have to take that bullet and charge headlong into the face of death. Early stages, there's going to be some repositioning here and there. Most of the mobility is trying to be getting a more of a surround off, as all of the the Sepulchral Stalkers going to be stocked for the time being, looking to get a little bit of a surprise in on that far flank. Though the the Beastmen and the Empire should have seen all of the Skeleton Horse Archers trying to circle around. I mean, there are attacking rules, but so far this initial positioning, and the Great Cannons are going to be, well, they were firing away, but it is under banner rules in terms of like attacking and stuff, but that still does allow the repositioning for so all the Counts and the Tomb Kings here, they are going to be allowed to just continually try and get that engagement. Of course, at one point we are going to have to get them moving in that right direction. Yeah, Divina Umeiz is the Dawi guy on RTK side. So here is going to be the approach. Once again, the Black Knight's going to be coming out of that tree line, but most of it, they're just going to be sending zombies forward to take those initial shots. While the Great Cannons will have plenty of ammunition to spare, so really wasting a few shots on some zombies, not going to be really the end of the world. Most of the time, you're not going to be seeing cannons getting all of their ammunition fired off in a single game. But it looks like the positioning for the Tomb Kings and the Counts is going to be just about finished up, as the Tomb Kings take their positions in that tree line. Anticity is not playing in this or today. He did play in the one on Friday. The skeleton horse archers going to be making their appearance on the far side. Going to be getting some pretty much free shots in, though these Ungor spearmen herd are going to be trying to screen them out, and they are going to be trying to get shots into. It looks like the great cannons just trying to get these guys sniped out, and they do have that range. So really, the Empire and the Beastmen need to push farther out into that direction. No, I did not make this bracket. This is completely blind picks, as is all of our clan wars. So that each side just submits their roster to our, I guess, representative. Usually that is me, and then that just put the two groups together, and whatever the matchups are is what the matchups end up being. So the skeleton horse archers so far have been able to get some nice shots into the great cannons. Unfortunately, they were not able to finish the job, as the Empire and the Beastmen were able to push them out of range. So now Volkmar, though, is just going to be running havoc amongst the undead lines. He's just going to be going right through these skeleton warriors, and there isn't going to be a whole lot of mass on the Tomb Kings and the Vampire Counts to really pin him in place, and that's probably one of the problems. Their only mass is in their cavalry, and their cavalry has taken quite a bit of damage. I mean, Black Knights aren't going to be able to hold up very well against like Minotaurs or Volkmar or anything like that. No Blood Knights to be seen on this field, but those Sepulchral Stalkers do have some mass themselves. And of course, the Sphinx is going to be a rather powerhouse. However, the Necromancer is going to be going down pretty early on. Those cannons just taking it down a peg or two, well, many pegs, as it is on its very last breath here. The only thing it had was that extra like healing regen, but definitely going to be a missing that in that front line for all those passives buffs to the undead side. But it is not going to be the end of the world. However, we do have the Minotaurs with Great Weapons trading very, very well into those Black Knights, taking them down. One of the Great Cannons has finally been routed off to this support fire. Empire Knights trying to screen out those Black Knights from getting into that backline, etc. Going to be chasing after Volkmar the Grim. The Volkmar is going to be a very hard target to really nail down, and most of the time you do end up just kind of waiting until the end game to really try and finish him off. And you get a nice little Vile Tide in, going to be doing some damage to some zombies. Not really doing a whole lot to those Stearnsmen, though that Banishment, on the other hand, is going to be doing a bit more than that Vile Tide, going right through the line, and is going to be staying directly above these zombies and the Stearnsmen, and going a little bit into the Ungor herd, but for the most part, going to be doing a lot of damage to those Stearnsmen. Backline continuing to be harassed by all of these skeleton horse archers, continuing to get some shots in a nice burning head, but for the most part, that is just going to be roasting down some zombies, though the continuation of that spell might be hitting these Stearnsmen, and it is going to be hitting those Stearnsmen right down the flank, but it's going to be, of course, clipping those Ungor Spearmen, but a very nice cast there, as it is able to do a massive amount of damage to those regenerating Graveguard. So things are looking pretty good for the ODM side at this point. I mean, another good Vile Tide into those skeleton archers, because really, like, what do the Counts and the Tomb Kings have to really bring down, like, Volkmar, all of the Minotaurs? I think the Minotaurs are almost the bigger threat here, because they'll be able to beat all of the cavalry. I mean, these Eyes of the Desert and the Sepulchral Stalkers are really coming in a little late to the engagement here. They probably were needed a little earlier to try and get those shots into those Minotaurs, and if they are, that will be able to bring them down. But at this time, I mean, the spawn are getting into the archers in the back line, etc., is trying to peel off some of these gore herds who have gotten back there. And these Graveguard will be able to beat these halberdiers here, but unfortunately, the Eyes of the Desert, the more important ones, have gotten a little too far ahead of themselves, getting caught out by the Minotaurs, and these other Sepulchral Stalkers really do need that assist. They need to, something needs to come in and peel these guys off the Eyes of the Desert, but unfortunately, I think those Eyes of the Desert are going to be getting taken down without even firing off a single one of their volleys, though Isabella is going to be, well, I guess, charging in to try and get onto Volkmar. But yeah, definitely looking very strong for the ODM side of things at this point. The Minotaurs paired with Volkmar, I think that's just going to be a little too much to get through for the undead, because the Minotaurs are just going to be able to finish off. I mean, the Sepulchral Stalkers are just like easy prey for them. They have the speed to catch them, and they'll just mow them down, and that's exactly what they're going to be doing here. We do get another one of the Realm of Souls, however, they still have a ways to go until they get to that Ushabti summon. And the balance of power, though, is already pretty heavily in the ODM favor, as, yeah, just the RTK forces are just losing more and more of their tools to kind of just finish the job. All of these skeleton horse archers are pretty much on the last legs of their ammunition, and just the entirety of their mass is just pretty much gone. We do have some grave guard to help kind of chew through like all of the Ungor spearmen and like the halberdiers, but in terms of just dealing with like the monstrous units, Cetra is really the only thing, and Cetra is way off into the sunset here, just dealing with some very cheap gore herd, and Cetra definitely needs to be in this center engagement, trying to get things done. So life definitely would have been very helpful for the Minotaurs, but I think going with that burning head probably made a little bit more sense, just considering it's like very good against all of the undead. There's the low armor, and they were able to get some nice value from those burning heads, so I don't think that was necessarily the wrong pick there. Of course, you do have like the Vile Tide and other good spells from the Beastman side if you wanted to have that chaff clearing on their side instead, and then go with that healing. But normally you have Volkmar, unless you're going with like heavy demis. The Life Wizard definitely wouldn't have benefited the Empire forces, so it would have been solely used on the Beastmen, which at this point, it doesn't look like they really need that. The Minotaurs are doing very well so far. Not a whole lot that's able to really whittle them down, but if they had that healing, like especially in this blob right here, you'd be able to hit the healing on like an Earthblood right here, which is top off all of the Minotaurs, the Sons of Goros. Plenty of good targets on that side. White King going to be going down here to just the mass of the Beastmen rush, and I think that is going to be just about it for the undead. The balance power pretty much being held solely by Isabella and Cetra, and really that was probably one of the biggest misplays here was with Cetra. Cetra has that healing from Isabella available, and with all of this, Cetra I don't think has like healed at all. So if we take a look at what he's healed, he still has 4,000 healing to go. So had he just been trying to deal with like the Minotaurs, he had that benefit from that Blood Chalice, so where he just would have been able to continually be topped off more and more. He does pop all of his buffs though on himself, so he does get that incantation of desiccation. He has the bonus versus large from all of that being overcasted, so he will be able to sort of last in this engagement for quite some time. And I think at this point is when you would want to pop off that first of the heals from Isabella, get Cetra topped off now, and then try and last for 2 minutes. I don't know if that's even possible at this point for Cetra and Isabella to last that long with what is left. I mean, all of the buffs going off. I mean, we have Volkmar the Grim using all of his. I guess I thought he was using all of his, but I mean, we have Flaming Sword of Ruin going down, so that gives that fire damage, which will be very useful against Cetra, considering he is weak to fire. All of the Tomb King Lords are. And especially with all the Minotaurs having all of that, he is just getting taken down very quickly. He does have Brion's Time Work on himself. Unfortunately, I don't think that is going to be holding back all of these very angry Minotaurs who are just wailing on him with axes larger than most men. And I think with Cetra going down, that is going to be army losses. Isabella sure isn't going to be able to carry her weight here. And that is going to be it, as ODM going to be tying up the series now at 2-2 with this victory. And we'll be getting right back into the 1v1s after this. So with that, the last of the undead crumble away. I'll take a look at the after-battle report real quick. So on the Beastman side, the Minotaurs getting some very nice value here. These guys getting 2,600, 1,700 on those guys. Sons of Goros getting 1,700, and then, I mean, that was really so much damage. Like, those 4 units probably did most of the heavy lifting for the ODM side. Even the Ungor Spearmen didn't do that badly, getting 400, 300 for all of those guys. Bray Shaman, Morgur, I mean, you got a lot of kills, but of course, I mean, it is still Morgur after all. For the forces of the Empire, even Volkmar was not able to do as much as the Minotaurs, only getting 1,300. The Bright Wizard with Burning Heads did rather well, 1,000 value, getting 175 kills. And then the rest of the forces, just going to quickly browse through those real quick. Silver Bullets got some damage in. Great Cannons did okay, enough to kind of force the Tomb Kings and the counts to really come to them. Eyes of the Desert and the Sepulchral Stalkers, I think they really needed to get into those engagements earlier on, get that support fire. They may have been able to chunk through those Minotaurs a little bit better had they not waited as long as they did. However, the Skeleton Horse Archers themselves got a ton of value between all 4 of them, able to use up all of their ammunition, and then just all ranged for the Tomb King side. Doing some decent value, though. They definitely were able to whittle down the opponents. And then Cetra, I think, though, that was the biggest misplay on RTK side. Cetra needed to be in that frontline engagements from the get-go. They needed that fear and terror. They needed to be able to use that healing from Isabella, because if he's not taking damage, that item's pretty much wasted at that point. And then just kind of quickly browse through the undead. The Graveguard, they didn't really do all too well either. They kind of got broken down pretty quickly themselves. So that is it for both sides. Let's go back to the main screen here. So we'll update. So that should be, there it is. And we'll update the scorecard as well. So it's now 2-2. And the lobby is up, so it is going to be a Lizardman versus Chaos then for this next one. So we have Yawning, Firefly, and Croissant Albert going to be facing off on Pillar of Bone for this next matchup. Kind of see... Just waiting on those guys to join on in. Send a little reminder in Discord for both of them. Yawning has been doing rather well lately. I believe he won the last qualifier for Rubber Duck Awards tournament, so I believe so, if I remember correctly. So he's been doing really well. Okay, so Yawning should be joining in just a second. I don't think he was in the WWC, but has otherwise been doing well in a lot of the different tournaments that I've seen him in. So there will be a 3v3 Radis that is going to be the last one. Is going to be Skaven, High Elves, and Coast versus the Wood Elves, Bretonia, and High Elves of ODM. All right, so we have Croissant Bert on the field, and then I'll add Yawning. Right, send the invite. Oh, there we are. Both sides are in. Alright, so Chaos versus Lizardman. Should be a good, fun fight here. Chaos definitely has plenty of tools to hold back the big dinos. Chosen, definitely not an uncommon pick to be seeing here, especially considering they are so good with that anti-large. And then, of course, you do have plenty of units that can help deal with, like Saurus, for example. And, of course, Temple Guard on the other side. And Lizardmen definitely have a strong kite, though, versus Chaos. So we might be seeing that kind of a build from the Lizardmen. Yep, 3v3s are always pretty fun. Luckily and unluckily, usually it does kind of slow down just a bit with how many people are in it. So you do give that little bit of extra time to kind of see how everything is going, and that does of course help the players themselves in terms of just kind of seeing everything that's going on. Though the last one we did did rather well in terms of overall lag. So okay, and now we'll switch over to the main scene as both sides are loaded on in. So for the Chaos forces of ODM, led by Croissant Aubert, We do, of course, have that Prince Sigvald Magnificent. We'll go over him in just a second. But for the rest of the forces, we do have Dragon Ogres. We have a couple of units of those. Some nice bonus versus large armor piercing. Some Chaos Warhounds with poison. And then plenty of Marauder Horsemen as well for some mobility. And in that the Lord and Hero department, it is going to be, of course, a Prince Siggy. Going to be coming in with that shining armor. And he does have his Auric armor, Slippery. He has Heroic Killing Blow and Standard Die. He is always a powerhouse. Well, yeah, I'd say he's pretty much a powerhouse, and he's very hard to bring down because he does have that perfect vigor, and he has very high base leadership at 100, and his armor as well, 110 Silver Shield, a very hard target. And for the caster, it is a Chaos Sorcerer of Metal, bringing Final Transmutation, Plague of Rust, and Scroll of Shielding. For the infantry, we have Mirror Guard, we have Chosen, 2 units of Chosen, we have some more Chaos Marauders, so just a tight little formation of infantry. Well, I say that's a tight little formation, but once again, we do have a little message to be displayed. So we have ODM, Garsanto Bort, giving us a nice little send-off message there before getting things underway. And yeah, just going over the rest. So yeah, there's one more Chaos Marauder there. So yeah, just the 2 Chosen. No, nothing anti-large though. We don't see any halberds or anything like that. It is purely going to be the 2 Dragon Ogres dealing all of that heavy damage. So both sides are underway already. So for the RTK side, we have some Pterodon Riders up in the sky. Just the regular variant there, getting all that poison. 4 in total. We have Lord Mazdamundi going to be on Zlak. Frontline Saurus Warriors should help break down anything but the Chosen. They might struggle a bit more with the Mirror Guard as well, but the Chosen will be the hard one to bring down. And there is going to be Chameleon Skin Cohorts with Javelins all the way across for even more poison. Just quickly go over what Lord Mazdamundi has as we'll swing in, grab his abilities, and then swing right back out. So he does have the net, he has Harmonic Convergence, Apotheosis for some heals, Shield the Old Ones, Bound Banishment, and Ruination of Cities. Yep, Archaon the Ever-Chosen. Prince Sigvald is exceptionally strong right now, and even if you do want to bring Lore of Fire, Prince Sigvald and a Firecaster I think is still cheaper than Archaon. Some nice rock drops early on, definitely the right target to be going after. The Chosen need to get broken down as the Saurus Warrior is not going to be able to deal with it. The cohort of Sotek will be able to do some damage. They are unbreakable, so that will help. That armor piercing will help as well. But I think most of it is going to have to be done with Lord Mazdamundi. Ruinations. Lord Mazdamundi himself will be able to just charge right through those Chosen, no problem. But Mazdamundi will have to be very mindful of the Dragon Ogres, which will be there for him in particular. But if I had to give an edge on the builds, I would have to say that the Lizardman army looks stronger. They just have that wider front line. The Chosen have tools to deal with, because we're here, we're going to be seeing that Ruination. Nice tendrils there, going to be going through half of the unit. Still, it did not do all that much damage, even though Ruination has that very high damage output. So maybe a little wasted, maybe have been better to kind of go into this more condensed units to get a little bit more damage overall. But Lord Mazdamundi should be able to deal with things. He does pop that Shield of the Old Ones, giving that nice little bit of staying power, so plus 8 leadership, plus 22 damage resistance. And we do have Harmonic Convergence as well going down on the cohort of Sotek, trying to just whittle down Chaos Marauders. Not really going to be standing too long against that. All of the Dragon Ogres as well, taking quite a bit of damage early on, though these guys staying nice and strong. Lord Mazdamundi definitely has to stay clear of those Dragon Ogres if he can help it. Allow just all of the range units to whittle them down bit by bit, as they are going to be trying to charge into the Skin Cohort with Javelins, though they have used up most of their ammunition on this other Dragon Ogre, really taking it down very, very low, and there is no healing on the Chaos side, so you're not really going to be seeing these guys get topped off, and especially getting chased off by the Cohort of Sotek, they may be done and dusted already. Banishment going through the Chosen, doing a nice little bit there, but Mazdamundi really is going to be the best counter to these Chosen on the field. So things looking a little rough for wear on the Chaos side. They have most of their front line already getting broken down. One of their Dragon Ogres is getting chased off. The other one is still nice and healthy, able to finish off these Saurus Warriors, and the cohort of Sotek is getting very low themselves, so that is going to be a bit of armor piercing, and these Mirror Guard on that far side are just holding strong, even though being sandwiched by 2 Saurus Warriors. They are holding against everything and everything. But yeah, still these Dragon Ogres are going to be that big threat in the late game, and they are really clearing out a lot of the support. And if the Chaos side can turn their attention to this pocket over here of these 2 Saurus Warriors, getting rid of those 2 will eliminate most of the strong support that Mazda will have for infantry. We have another Saurus Warrior, but they are getting a little low. But finally, though, the Mirror Guard are facing their limit. Normally, they will last until the very bitter end. They have high base leadership, high armor, but unfortunately, being surrounded by 2 of the Saurus Warriors, not going to be enough to hold things back. And Mazda still very, very healthy, as the Dragon Ogres try once again to kind of turn their attention towards him, but there is still too much of Saurus Warriors and the like can keep it away. It looks like we have another Ruination of Cities going to be going through here, just trying again to finish off the Chosen, and it very well, very lucky on that cast, going right through the Chosen and missing those Saurus Warriors. So that is 1 more elite infantry out of the picture. Just kind of taking a look at what is still left. I think these are, okay, so we still have 1 unit of Chosen that are still at half health, and Mazda, especially now that these Dragon Ogres are getting just pretty much just shot to pieces by all of the range units. Once the Dragon Ogres are gone, Mazda should turn his attention directly to those Chosen, and him cycling through those Chosen, they're not going to be stopping him. It is not going to be the Chosen with halberds, just the regular, melee. They are very strong. They have that 120 armor, but facing Mazda on Zlak, that is not what they signed up for. They are not immune to psychology either, so they will be susceptible to those terror routes. And it looks like, yeah, Chaos is pretty much on the back foot now. It is going to be down to just Prince Sigvald for the most part. He is a very strong lord in and of himself, but I still don't think that Prince Sigvald is going to be able to take down old Lord Mazda when he is on Zlak. Maybe if it was a different lord, that may be a different story, but try as he might, I don't think he's going to be able to bring down the big dino. 130 armor piercing, bonus versus infantry. It should be able to finish off Sigvald, even though that charge, it did kind of land a little bit to the side. The rest of the Chaos support is getting peeled away bit by bit across the map. The Chaos Sorcerer of Metal is pretty isolated right now, and honestly, Lord Mazda might just be a good idea to just leave Prince Sigvald there to his own devices, finish off the rest of the Chosen and the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal here, and then just kind of take Prince Sigvald when he is all by his lonesome. Because honestly, I think that the Chosen will be able to finish off all of the units that are going to try and take them down, but a single charge from Lord Mazda would probably terror route them off the field, and that would just leave old Lord, or just Prince Sigvald. And Lord Mazda has that really high charge bonus. He has, I think it's 70 charge bonus. Actually, yes, it is 70 charge bonus. So that's usually the best way that you use Lord Mazda is you just charge in and out with him, just continually recharging that massive charge bonus. And he is going to be turning his attention directly to this Chaos Sorcerer of Metal, though the Chosen have been just getting shot by these Chameleon Skinks, and they do end up routing even without Lord Mazda help. Though that charge into the that Sorcerer there should be the final nail in the coffin for the caster. Going to be routing off the field, and everything else will now be able to just kind of continue the chase, and Mazda will once again return his attention to Prince Sigvald. Yeah, and at this point, yeah, it's just going to be old Siggy just sitting in just the massive infantry. And if Mazda wasn't on the field at all, Prince Sigvald very well would probably be able to carry against everything that is left. There is some Chosen returning, but the Pterodon Riders going to be swooping in, should be routing them off the field with just that charge, and they do rout, might just shatter. But yeah, without Lord Mazda, I think Sigvald would be able to beat everything that is on the field, which is saying something for himself. Yes, a charge defense does not work when he is engaged in combat. That's how all units, when something is engaged, they don't get that charge bonus. So he would have to be outside, and that is not going to be happening anytime soon with what is left. So here comes Mazda looking for the final kill. As Prince Sigvald still at full health though. These Saurus Warriors, these Skink cohort, they are not going to be finishing him off anytime soon. If we take a look at what he's got in terms of healing left, he still has 1100 heal cap space. He is, right now you just see it just sitting constant. He is healing slightly, but for the most part, he's just not really taken like any damage whatsoever. He is still fresh as a daisy. He has pretty high leadership still, but that is going to be changing momentarily as Lord Mazdamundi continues charging his way forward. And as soon as he gets in, I think that is going to be pretty much the end. I mean, army losses is just about to trigger here for Chaos anyways. So that charge from Lord Mazdamundi, if he does land a hit on it, might be, and especially popping the Harmonic Convergence to boot. But unfortunately, even with that charge, though, the second follow-up does land a nice hit, and that is going to be triggering army losses. And that will be all she wrote here, as something's still alive, though, for Chaos. Oh, there it goes. So, take a little look at the after-battle report here real quick. So, Prince Sigvald, 1300, so just about to pay for himself. I mean, had he been able to stick around, he probably would have paid for himself and then some. I wouldn't be surprising if he had gotten upwards of over 2,000 if he had been allowed to fight to the bitter end. Rest of the forces, Miragard, not doing so good. Chosen, one of which did okay, but I mean, it's still Chosen, and they're very, very expensive, so even with that many kills, not quite worth it. And then the Dragon Ogres, I think they needed to be solely focused on Lord Mazdamundi and Lord Mazdamundi alone, because once they were gone, nothing could kill Mazdamundi at that point, and the mobility themselves just got broken down too much by all the chameleons, the Pterodon Riders, and the like. So for the Lizardman side of things, Lord Mazdamundi getting 2,500, Saurus trading rather well into the Chaos front line. Even the Court of Sotek did pretty decent, but the ranged was really where a lot of that value came from. I mean, chameleons, these guys getting 800, all the Pterodon Riders generating some decent value between all of them, so a nice good diffusion of that value across the Lizardman side of things. Switch on back to that main screen, update the scorecard as RTK does take the lead once again, sitting at 3-2. And we'll be into our next matchup, which will be Empire versus Tomb Kings. Definitely an Empire-favored matchup. So that will be Felix versus Showtime. There are a few messages on Discord, though. Okay. So yeah, it'll be Felix versus Showtime. It will be on Galbaraz. All right, I'll send invites to both of them. I should have... I know I have Felix. I don't know if I have Showtime, though. Maybe I don't have either. Alright, I'll have to send them friend invites then. Oh, they must have a lobby already set up. So I'll switch over to that then. Oh, wait. So Felix might be heading on in. Okay, so they have a lobby up, so I will join that instead. Let's see. There it is. All right, so we have Empire versus the Tomb Kings in this next matchup. It's going to be Felix and Showtime on those factions respectively. So, and yeah, I would say this is an Empire favored, maybe not like super heavy Empire favored, but they just have like just having all those gunpowder, like the access to Lore of Fire. Usually that access to that Lore of Fire makes the Tomb King matchup just a lot easier in general, just because it is good against like every single infantry unit that they'll bring. Tomb Guard, or even like any of the archers. It'll just roast any of them. Looks like both sides are ready, so they are loading on in. And then we'll get into the next game already. So yeah, this will be the last of the 1v1s, and then we'll have a 2v2 and a 3v3 to wrap things up in the end. And we'll see just who is going to end up on top here. So far, RTK is up 3-2. This one will decide if it's either going to be 4-2 or going to be 3-3 going in. And if ODM does win this, then the final game will be decided, or the 3v3 will decide the overall outcome. But if RTK does win this fight, they do have the opportunity to take or clinch it in that 2v2. Of course, we will still go into the 3v3 anyways. So just both sides loaded in, get out of debug camera, and then we'll switch the scene on over. So for the Empire forces being led by Felix, we do have Empire Knights on the flanks, just for some nice mobility to kind of just counteract any Skeleton Horse Archers, or they won't necessarily trade that well into the Necron Horsemen, but they will be able to kind of keep those Horse Archers at bay. We have a Light Wizard and a Bright Wizard. So Bright Wizard bringing Burning Head and Fireball. Light Wizard does have the Net of Amrentok, and I always get these confused between the lores. I think it's Shem's. It is Shem's Burning Gaze. And then for the range department, we do have some handgunners here mixed in with the Sterling's Revenge, the Free Company Militia ROR, and the Silver Bullets, who do have that magical damage. And then for that rest of the front line, it is going to be Spearmen, Swordsmen. We have Sigmar Sons. So this is actually a pretty common build strategy from Felix, is you just bring a bunch of infantry like this and then kind of put some gunpowder units. You have Volkmar as well, who does have all of his abilities, so he is rolling in with that Jade Griffin, the Banishment. We have Grand Hammer of Sigmar, Grand Shield of Faith, and the Grand Soulfire, and that is going to wrap things up for the Empire side of things. Now for the ODM forces on the Tomb Kings, we do have some Necron Horsemen, so we have 4 in total, so they will definitely be able to overrun the Empire Knights, so they'll have to be very careful on that side. We have 4 total Skeleton Horse Archers, so very heavy in the mobility game for the Tomb Kings, and then the front line is going to be some Tomb Guard. Lots of Tomb Guard, actually. So we have 4 Tomb Guard, we have 2 Skeleton Spearmen, and then we have a Tomb Scorpion for that Fear and Terror. We have Arkan the Black bringing in Spirit Leech, and it looks like that's aspect of the Dread Knights. Oh no, Doom and Darkness. Yeah, aspect wouldn't make sense. But yeah, Doom and Darkness, so they're going for that kind of a leadership bomb. The Empire forces have that kind of low leadership. It's not as low as some factions, but it can still, especially when overcasted, that Doom and Darkness is an AoE. So we have the Liber Mortis as well, Staff of Nagash, and the Tomb Blade of Arkan, and that summon will definitely be quite helpful at getting into all of these backline units. We do get a Spirit Leech early on, cast on these Empire Knights, and with that Staff of Nagash, as soon as that Spirit Leech is done, they'll be able to pop that Staff of Nagash and get another Spirit Leech off right away, and we might be seeing that, but we are going to be seeing, it looks like, a Fireball and the Shem's Burning Gaze both going for Arkan, but Arkan is able to drop down just below the ridge here and is able to dodge the initial volley, and then the Fireball as well, going to be hitting that tree line there, so just that a little bit terrain play, definitely helping out the Tomb Kings here early on in that fight. And here is the initial engagement. Both sides going to be charging forward, meeting the Tomb Guard. Now, Tomb Guard definitely going to be winning alone for the most part. However, with Volkmar the Grim here in battle, that is going to be another thing entirely. A nice Soulfire Bombardment going to be dropping down, as well as a Banishment on these guys. And I wouldn't be surprised if I see a Burning Head follow up on these Tomb Guard on the far flank. And I hear a Net of Amrentok going down. I can't see where that one did end up dropping. but the center ranks of the Empire forces is getting attacked by the Attack Horsemen. We do get a summon from Arkan as well, so we get some more Skeleton Warriors going to collapse on the handgunners and the Sterling's Revenge, and more of the handgun lines and the Silver Bullets are still free to fire, but most of the other units have been taken out of the picture. We do get that Liber Mortis as well, keeping all of the Tomb King forces in that fight for even longer, so things looking very strong for the Tomb Kings early on. I do actually have some Skeleton Horse Archers as well thrown into the mix, but yeah, they have done a very good job of collapsing upon the inner ranks of the Empire formation, so things definitely looking very strong for the Tomb Kings, though of course there is still Volkmar the Grim, and if you look at what the Tomb Kings have, there's not a lot that can do a lot of damage to Volkmar himself, so that may be a key factor in this battle, or the outcome of this battle, is what can kill Volkmar. We have a nice burning head going to be going through those Skeleton Spearmen. I think it may have been better to go against maybe some of the Tomb Guard, but we do have an Overcasted Doom and Darkness going down as well, going to be causing a lot of these units to end up routing. The handgunners, all of these Empire Knights are probably going to be going away pretty soon as well, and that is going to leave Volkmar pretty isolated. But again, as I was saying before, you have the Tomb Scorpion. The Tomb Scorpion, while it has bonus versus, or it has armor piercing, it has bonus versus infantry versus bonus versus large. So Volkmar should be able to do fairly well against it, especially with both the spellcasters still alive for the time being. They did get a Shem's Burning Gaze fired point blank into Arkan. The Arkan has been able to tank out most of that damage fairly well, and at this point he is going to be nice and safe sitting in the back. There's still a ton of Tomb King forces left, in terms of just counts, but as most of the Empire forces is routing, we do get some of the Sterling's Revenge coming back, though these Unhekron Horsemen are going to be making sure that they don't stay back for very long. And Volkmar, though, he's going to be a major problem for the Tomb Kings what's left, because what do you have? You have some archers, but Volkmar has pretty high armor. I think he even has missile. He has missile resist as well. It's going to be very hard to bring him down, even with using up all of the ammunition on these archers. We have some of the handgunners coming back online, going to be turning its attention towards that Tomb Scorpion. Definitely the right target to be going after. We do get a banishment right into the middle of these Skeleton Spearmen. Just going to be going away. I think that may have been better to have just waited on that banishment until things were really grouped up around Volkmar, but still, I think Volkmar has a decent chance of really pulling it through here, even with everything else pretty much being eliminated. Though Volkmar is kind of slowly getting whittled down bit by bit. He still has most of his HP left and probably quite a bit of his healing. If you take a look at that, he still has 2,600 healing to go. So he can heal up all the way to full and then some, so he still is not going to be out of or in any danger just yet. ODM, Loopy, you're definitely right. You need that Scorpion left, and the Scorpion is getting very low with the Empire Knights closing in around it. If the thing does start to crumble, and Volkmar, seeing that there is blood construct in the water, is going to be making sure that this Tomb Scorpion does get finished off, and down it will be going, crumbling away, taking quite a bit of damage, disintegrating, and down goes one of the good tools left to deal with Volkmar. And you have Tomb Guard left, but Tomb Guard, they're not going to be able to stop Volkmar at all. We still have some swordsmen. I'm pretty sure the Sigmar Sons have long since departed, though these handgunners are getting a nice little bit of extra space here to kind of just turn and start firing away. I think at this point the Empire Knights need to just kind of charge in, get as much distance as they can for these handgunners to get as much value while these handgunners are still alive and well, though they are on just about to break here. They are very low in terms of leadership. Liber Mortis goes down, getting the Skeleton archers that little bit of extra physical resist, and since these are not the silver bullets, they will actually be able to tank that fire a lot better than they normally would. We get a summon in the backline from Arkan, just making sure that these handgunners do get finally pushed off. These Skeleton Chariots going to make sure that they are going to be escorted right off the field, and the Spearmen are the last of the support for Volkmar, and with them gone, that means Volkmar is going to be forced to stay engaged in melee, though he still has all of his abilities alive and well. There's just so many Tomb Kings left at this point, but it is going to be It's going to be a long fight from here on out, I think, since Volkmar is going to be unbreakable. He is going to be taking all of the shots, though, from the Skeleton Force archers, though they are almost out of ammunition. These chariots as well getting very low, and Arkan is not going to be able to stand up against Volkmar, so it is just going to be pretty much a waiting game at this point, as Volkmar is almost certainly going to be able to hit his healing cap, and that was a early concede, I believe. I do not think that battle is done just yet. But nonetheless, Felix does end up conceding. I think, yeah, I mean, I still think Volkmar had a chance there to kind of pull through, but I guess when he was kind of forced to stay engaged in melee, but at that point, I mean, he still had all of his buffs. His Soulfire Bombardment could have done a ton of damage with each cast, even though it does take a while to use it. Otherwise, just kind of looking through the units real quick. I mean, the Skeleton Horsemen did very well. The Necron Horsemen did well. The Horse Archers also did quite well. Tomb Scorpion, unfortunately, did not do so well. But, man, the Skeleton Archer Chariots got 2,000 in terms of total damage. But, yeah, that's going to be it for the last of the 1v1s. So we'll switch on over to that. And we'll get another lobby set up for the 2v2. Which will be Wood Elves Chaos versus Norska and the Greenskins. So it is going to be 3-3, so pretty much this is going to be a fun 2v2, and it's not really going to affect the outcome of the series at all, because, I mean, regardless of whatever happens here, the winner will be decided by the 3v3. And for this matchup, let's see, is Showtime in this one? So Showtime is in this one too. So he's going to have to just open up some spots. There we go. Well, we could have just increased the speed of the match there, but yeah, Volkmar is like Sigvald to an extent where they can just last far longer than they have any rights to do so. Oops. Uh-oh. I think we may have just crashed. So I might be making a lobby anyways. Yep. Okay, I send them a little message so they don't start without me. Yep, it's not a clan war if we don't have a crash or two thrown into the mix at some point. I would have to say Volkmar is probably the most tanky lord. Because with Volkmar, it's probably a lot... I mean, You need different tools to deal with both of them. Like, Sigvald will go down to, like, an assassin, where, like, Volkmar will just dumpster an assassin. Like, Vlad has that is same type of regen, functionally unbreakable. It has the ring, which now can be used over and over. Grumbrindle, I would say, is probably the least tanky of those four. So let's see, the next map is Southern Chaos Waste. It's just that Volkmar has such insanely high mass, whereas like there's no infantry unit can really delay him, even in halberds. Like he just had like the Stolfar bombardment is pretty much like you can't surround him with infantry because he'll just nuke it all. But that's kind of the best way to deal with it. Deal with him is that like anti-large halberd unit. All right, let's see. I got to call Harmon and Showtime. Yumeis. Satsuma and there we go. All invites sent. All right, both sides are now organized. So yeah, this will be Greenskins versus Norska and Wood Elves versus Wood Elves and Chaos, and Greenskins and Norska. So should be a rather interesting. We're going to be having pretty much a very strong rush from the Greenskins and Norska side. They still have tools like Marauder Horsemen with like the Horse Masters. All of the skirmish cav from the Greenskins are all very useful tools. But on the flip side, there is still going to be Horsemen and Horse Masters on the Chaos side of things. And the Wood Elves, though, will have that stronger kite. So I feel like the Greenskins and the Norskins are going to be electing more for a stronger push, so they probably are going to have to need some kind of mobility here because it is a rather large map. So if this was a smaller map, then the rush may have been a little bit more easier to do. I think the biggest factor in this is going to be the Wood Elves and kind of how they want to go about it, because they have, yeah, there's so many variety of tools to use in this one. The Flying Unicorn flag. It's probably one of the Bretonia factions, because if you're looking at the screen here, that's the logo there is the Bretonia main faction. I can't remember if Carcassonne has what theirs is exactly. I imagine it's Bretonia, though. Nope, that is not theirs. Not sure which one is theirs then. Oh, a Dark Elf. Oh, it must. Oh, you're talking about the. It must be the Dark Pegasus then. Let's see. Looking it up. Yes, so Cult of Pleasure, I think, is the one then. So Marathi's faction. So it's just the Dark Pegasus. All right, so we got Showtime and Call Harmon are ready to go. I think like Satsuma was ready. So just, I think we're waiting on Yumeis to finish. Yeah, Cult of Pleasure, that's Marathi's faction. All right, both sides ready. Let's roll on in to our last 2v2. Yeah, this is pretty much just for fun. It's not going to decide the outcome of today's series. That will be decided by the 3v3, and that is going to be something else indeed. Both the pups nice and relaxed. All right. I mean, it's Slade X has a build versus Norska as Dark Elves, which is almost like that segment, but it has a couple Dark Riders in it, and I think some Dark Shards, but it's mostly all Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter. So it's very, very close to what you're looking for. All right, so both sides loaded on in. So we have for the ODM forces on the Norskins and the Greenskins, we do have quite a bit of quick mobility. We have those Norskin Ice Wolves, which have moved. So we have 4 units of those, which will help chase down a lot of the kiting units of like the Wood Elves, for example. We do have throwing axes. We have 4 units of those. Definitely helpful to deal with like some of the flyers, but they have to be really close to deal with them. That is kind of the problem with these guys. Usually you'd elect for like either Horsemasters or Horsemen, but they can be useful kind of whittling down the high armor of the Chaos if that's more what they're worried about. We have Marauder Chariots as well. Not a unit you'll be seeing all too often, these chariots. They do have bonus versus infantry. For the Lord, it is going to be Wulfric the Wanderer on horse. Definitely being a little mindful of what the Way Watchers can do on the Wood Elf side, keeping them nice and mobile. Though, of course, having them on horse is going to make them a little bit of an easier target to hit with, like Arrows of Kurnus, for example. Shaman of Metal bringing just Final Transmutation, and Wulfric has that Seafang, Hunter Champions, and Foe Seeker. For the Greenskin side of things, it is going to be some 8-peak loonies mixed in, some Night Goblin Fanatics, a couple of those. So it looks like a pretty heavy vanguard from the Greenskins, as we also have Nasty Skulkers for the front line. We have plenty of Fanatics across that front line. So all of these units are Fanatics. We do have these Night Goblin Archer Fanatics as well. We have the Rusty Arrows, the Night Goblin Archers ROR, so they have Armor Sundering. Some more Night Goblin Archer Fanatics, and then we have a Night Goblin Warbass with his own Fanatic. So it's a very, very heavy Fanatic build. So we have Fermented Fungi, we have Dabas's Loons, and we have Tormentor's Sword for a nice little control. Night Goblin Shaman bringing in, if it doesn't keep moving on me. We have Vindictive Glare, we have, I believe that is Itchy Nuisance, and then we have the Wand of Jet and Mad Cat Mushroom. And then just more skirmish on the side flanks. We have Force Goblin Spider Riders with some Goblin Wolf Rider Archers on both sides, I imagine. Or just the one side. The other side is just going to be the Horsemen. So very heavy on the mobility core. So I see even more just the regular Norskin Warhounds with the Norskin Ice Wolves. So this is going to be a very micro-intensive army on both sides with the Fanatics, with all of the mobility on the Norskins. But if anyone's going to be able to pull it off, it is going to be ODM. So we have some on the the Wood Elves and the Chaos side of things. We have some Glade Rider Spears as like the only mobility, and that is going to be all that they have. Otherwise, it is going to be a front line of just Chaos Warriors. We have the Mirror Guard, some more Chaos Warriors just to hold back the rush, but they are going to be a little careful of those Fanatics. The Fanatics are going to make some quick work of all these Chaos Warriors. That high armor is going to be lovely targets for them. They do have some Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts in the background with some Hagbane tips for that poison. And then just more and more archers just kind of slowly whittling their way into the back, with a couple of Dryads holding that back line, with some of the Eternal Guard holding the flanks. We do also have some of the Weird Spawn as well, which do have that bonus, or they have the Armor Sundering, and they also have a little bit of physical resist as well. But that is going to be the two armies, so I think they are both ready to go. So start when ready. So this will be a very interesting build to see if ODM can pull off this type of army. I think they definitely have this game pretty much in the books. I mean, okay, I did forget the Lords and Heroes on the Chaos, and what else? So they have Exalted Hero, I think has that one sword, I think that gives fire damage. We'll double check on that one. Archaon, which has the Slayer of Kings. He does have Burning Head and the Flaming Sword, with the Ancient Tree Men having Looks like Earthblood, Regrowth, and Foe Seeker with the Power Stone. Yeah, that is it for those sides. So let's, as both sides going to be advancing, the Norskin's going to be having a ton of pressure here on this side. Way more pressure than the Wood Elves are going to be able to even remotely handle here at this point. So it's just going to be a matter of, can all of this be controlled in an appropriate fashion to try and find those holes in this formation to try and get in, to kind of just try and just finish things off like quickly as possible. Because if like these Fanatics casts do not go off, these Chaos Warriors are going to be very hard to just break down. You do have the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, but all of these Glade Guard do have that range advantage. They'll trade much better into those guys and keep them at bay. But it's going to be pretty much a game of, can you dodge the Fanatics? And if not, I think that is going to be a ODM win here, because this side is already getting overwhelmed. These Chaos Marauders, there's just too much mobility. We do have, it looks like a Burning Head's going to be going through all of these Warhounds, doing a nice little bit of damage to them, actually taking out quite a bit of HP, but that Sea Fang as well did a bunch of damage to those Chaos Warriors. And here is that collapse, and I think this may be just about all she wrote early on, as all of the Norskin Warhounds are just collapsing into that back line. We do have the Firebelk Elders, which are going to be trying to push them back as the Glade Guard push forward, but we are going to be getting a final transmutation, looks like, being casted off. It is going to be an overcasted as well, going to be hitting both of these Glade Guard, hitting the Firebelk Elders, and I think it did clip the Exalted Hero as well. But yeah, that initial just mobility rush into the here, it's doing quite well, though. There is still plenty of Glade Guard still free to fire. We have this little pocket here still nice and healthy. These Chaos Warriors able to push back these AP Communities, but there is another Fanatics just going through the entirety of the unit, and I think that's just going to rout them off outright, as most of the units here, as we do have Archaon and the Ancient Treatment, though, are going to be very hard for the Norskins and the Greenskins to deal with. They don't have any strong melee lords. I mean, you do have Wulfric, but Archaon is going to be able to do a ton of damage to Wulfric, especially if he's able to bait out that Hunter of Champions. But of course, if Slayer Kings is on cooldown, Wulfric will be able to do some decent work himself. But when they're both on horse, just Archaon is just such a major, powerful duelist that is going to be able to kind of really deal a ton of damage there. But so far, yeah, the balance power is slightly in the ODM favor at this point. All of the archers just being able to stay online for maybe just long enough, but there is, once again, like the second rush of the mobility of the Norskins is just going to be feeding into this gap here, and is going to be putting on more and more pressure. Hopefully, we don't see another crash here, as things kind of slow to a crawl. All right, looks like we are moving once again. Hopefully no one gets dropped here. And this is kind of, I guess, one of the problems of the 2v2s and the 3v3s to come, where you can have the potential for stuff like this, but it does allow us to get a little overview of things. It looks like abilities are still being able to be popped, so Foe Seeker went off. We're getting a spell going off around here. Looks like an Earthblood. Hopefully no one drops. The longer this takes, the more chances that that's going to happen. Come on. Exactly, Loopy. Don't fail me now. We've made it this far. Things are moving. Things are going so well up until this point, too. Massive hit against the Goblin Big Boss, though, from Archaon, as it is just staggering right now. But, come on, we can do it. Alright, at least we have some fluidity left. A Sea Fang goes down, and things look to have once again gone back up to speed, so looking good from this point. Well, hopefully it's looking pretty good from this point on. Archaon, though, is getting kind of surrounded in a bunch of units right here, so, I mean, as long as he is nice and healthy at full health, the Goblin, the Night Goblin War Boss does kind of pull a little back here, but Archaon and that Tree Man are going to be really the anchors of the chaos and the Wood Elf forces here. They are both going to be very hard to bring down, because that's one thing that this rush of the Norskins and the Greenskins lack, is that ability to really take down those lords and heroes. The Ancient Tree Men can get shot to pieces by like the Rusty Arrows, for example, so the Rusty Arrows are going to be a good tool against the Ancient Tree Man, but Archaon's going to be another story entirely. We do get, it looks like a Hunter Champions goes down on that Ancient Tree Man, reducing that armor. He does pop a regrowth on himself, though, trying to heal him off, and he needs some help if he's going to be able to kind of get back in this fight. So he does have that regrowth, but that smoke bomb does hit, and he might just be going down here. Nice burning head, though, going to be going right through the last of these Night Goblins Fanatics. Not going to be able to do all that much to their own weird spawn. So really just getting rid of all those Fanatics is very nice. But yeah, the Ancient Tree Men, unfortunately, does look like it is going to be going down completely, especially with these nasty Skulkers, though they do get terrified from its mere presence. Wolfric the Wanderer is in hot pursuit, as Archaon and like the Exalted Hero with the Weird Spawn are all kind of running as a group, which is pretty much what they need to do. They need to stay together, because, I mean, at this point, army losses is probably the biggest threat to Archaon. I think they can get whittled down, like if Wolfric times his Hunter Champions at the right point, they can pretty much deal with Archaon, but he is going to be a pretty hard foe to bring down completely. Fireball Elders, I think, need to regroup with the rest of the Chaos Forces, get them all together at once, and then just kind of use Archaon as like just the wrecking power. I mean, the Weird Spawn got whittled down actually really quickly there. They all go down there. I think those Norscan Ice Wolves really did a number to them. We're able to really do a bunch, but here's a nice burning head, but we do have an I'm going to guess it's an overcasted final, no, just a regular final transmutation. Going to be hitting Archaon and the Exalted Hero, as that is going to be doing a bit of damage. And really, the Exalted Hero, it would probably be a good idea. Well, at this point, it doesn't matter. I was going to say try and pull back the Exalted Hero outside of the range of that final transmutation. And Archaon has started taking a little bit of damage, but he is in hot pursuit of Wolfric, as he does kind of quickly run away. Slayer of Kings does get popped, but so is the Hunter of Champions, and they are going to be dueling at once. And I think Wolfric had to wait just a little bit longer, because, he waited maybe just long enough, because Foe Seeker is now popped. The Slayer of Kings did get kind of used up. So Archaon is starting to take more and more damage, but Wolfric the Wanderer is in a rough spot. He is taking a bunch of damage from both the Exalted Hero and Archaon at this point, both dishing out a bunch, but he does dish out a nice bit of damage in return to that Exalted Hero, a much larger target to be hitting, though Archaon does look like he is able to kind of finish off the other Lords and Heroes, as Wolfric once again charging back in, looking for another round or two to go against Archaon. And with the Exalted Hero gone, it is looking like it is just Archaon left, even the Fireball Elders, and it is going to be army losses. Down goes the forces of RTK in the last 2v2, and that is going to give ODM the 5-3 lead going into the final 3v3. Greenskins win. What a huge surprise. But yeah, I'll go over the results here real quick. We'll update the scorecard. So ODM, oops, not that one. Now up to 5. We'll go over the results. So Firebark Elders getting some nice, decent kills, but yeah, that rush was just so strong on the Norskins. I mean, it's really the Norskin rush there. Like all the Fanatics on the Greenskin side were pretty much there just to deal with that front line, and then all of that mobility on the Norskins were just able to just wash up into that back line of the Wood Elves and Chaos, and there just wasn't enough to hold them back, as they just got completely overrun. Though these Dryads were able to get 1,000 in total value, some nice, decent value there. And if we switch over to the Chaos side, Weird Spawn got some good work in, but yeah, the rest of the forces just got those Fanatics just destroyed that front line. The Exalted Hero got some nice damage in. Archaon, as always, I mean, 3,400, tons of value with him. And I was saying he may have been the only way back for the Chaos and the Wood Elf side, but yeah, army loss is triggered. I don't know. Yeah, he probably wouldn't have had enough. He's not as tanky as Sigvald, so enough of this infantry probably would have grinded him down. I don't think it would have mattered at that point, even if Wolfric had finally gone down. Some of these Night Goblin archers got a ton of value themselves. Just the rest of the Fanatics, I mean, most of that value was from those Fanatics, I'm sure. Just because in melee they're not going to be able to do as much. These nasty Skulkers with that armor piercing was able to do a nice bit of work as well. And then for the forces of the Norskins, nice value on all of the Hounds. And then even the throwing axes were able to generate a good amount And the final transmutation on that Sorcerer Medal, getting 2200 between them. That first final transmutation was probably the bulk of that damage. It hit like 2 archers, the Firebrook Elders. It might have hit Archaon and the Exalted Hero. I know it hit the Exalted Hero there. And even Wolfric was able to get 2k in total value himself. But yeah, the 2 heroes did a ton of damage for Norsca. But yeah, that is it for the 2v2. We'll switch back to the main screen. And it is now going to be the 3v3. So spots are open for those playing in that. So we'll have Xiphos on his Wood Elves. We'll update the map in just a sec. So that is going to be Peak Pass, nice and large for both sides to have plenty of room for their mobility, for any of their kiting with the Xiphos' Wood Elves. So yeah, Croissant Report is going to be on Bretonia for ODM, and we'll have Loopy on the High Elves. And then on the RTK side, we have Human Boy on the Skaven, Yawning Firefly on Coast, and Satsuma will be commanding the High Elves. So, as always, kind of with these 3v3s, I mean, you can make predictions all you want going into these things, but it's going to be kind of up for grabs. And taking a look at just like the factions in general, though, you have plenty of very good mobility on ODM's side. And I think that's, I mean, if you look at it both sides, you have strong ranged on RTK, strong mobility on ODM for the respective factions. So you have, like, I mean, you have Dragon Princes, Questing Knights, you have Wild Riders, you have Great Stag Knights. All of those very strong Cav factions are condensed with ODM. And then if you look at RTK, you have Skaven and Vampire Coast, very good at range. Lots of summons is kind of the other big thing with those two. And then you have High Elves, which do have decent range as well. You have like Sisters, you have Bolt Throwers, which can add to that, though they do have that mobility as well. I mean, against the numbers that against like the High Elves, Bretonians, and High Elves or Wood Elves on ODM, the one unit or the one faction of High Elves on RTK, I just don't know if they want to even try to contest that or not, and just go solely with with spears. With them, you can even go with the Phoenix Guard if you want to, just try and expect the Cav rush. But of course, at the same time, if you expect the Cav rush, you might just be facing a Wood Elf, High Elf, Bretonia hybrid kite between all three of those factions, because I mean, Wood Elves and High Elves can also kite you fairly effectively, specifically Wood Elves. And then Bretonia can just kind of have a bunch of chaff for delay, and then their own cavalry to kind of keep the kiting forces of the Wood Elves and the High Elves safe. So it's really going to be kind of up in the air for how either side is going to be playing this. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, that we're not going to have to worry about any problems with people's PCs and stuff like that. Hopefully everyone is nice and strong for that, and we won't have to worry about anything like that. But regardless, we're going to be in for a show. Oof, yeah, this is going to be quite the treat. So hopefully everyone's going to be ready fairly soon with their builds. They've had a little bit of time to kind of get some strategies together. Again, so let's go over there is I guess there's some kind of rule changes between the 2v2s versus the 3v3s. So it is still going to be 10,000 funds per player. We have the max of 4 heroes per team. So you can't have 6 in total, only 4 max. 3 summoning spells and abilities, same as the 2v2s. Same with the 1 max net and ability, including the 60% slows, same as the 2v2s, and the minimum count is up to 750. Again, though, we usually aren't going to be seeing any problems with that. We're sure not going to be seeing any problems with Skaven and Coast on the field. And it should be pretty easy for Bretonnia to help pad those numbers themselves. But usually, it's not uncommon to see like a few thousand units on either side in these 3v3s, especially when you're seeing lots of Skaven, Coast, Empire, Bretonnia, factions like that, which can field lots of high numbers or counts or anything like that. Well, I don't know if anyone else has any predictions on how this crazy match is going to be going, but yeah, this is going to be the deciding factor for today's series. The winner of this game will take the, I guess, the top score of the day. So either RTK is going to be having 6-5, or ODM is going to be taking an 8-3 victory, much like they did on Friday. So see if we're going to be seeing a repeat of that score, or we're going to be changing up the script. I mean, you can. The one thing with these like 2v2s and 3v3s, which we've seen with both, well, especially with the last game where Norska consolidated entirely in the mobility game. They had no infantry, and how like the Tomb Kings in the game before that was all ranged and mobility. They didn't have any infantry themselves. So like the Skaven, for example, can go all weapons teams. They don't need to even... Well, they'll probably still bring Skaven slaves because they're just so useful to have, but they don't have to worry about like fielding a bunch of other units. They can say, yes, I'm going to go with just ranged, I'm going to go with just artillery, or I'm just going to go just cavalry. So you can focus your entire like micro on one aspect of the battle. Yes, Kenny, this is part 2 of the Clan Wars to an extent. So the one that Turin did, it was all 1v1s, and this one is going to be there's 4 1v1s, 2 2v2s, and this is going to be the final 3v3. So it is different from before. This is the format that we've been doing for all of our Clan Wars up to this point. So this is just how things... So that's kind of how we decided to do 2 different ones with that. But yeah, it does look like... Leo, that you might be seeing that because Loopy is picking Imric's sub-faction, so he is going to be on them. So that's going to be a little treat that we might be seeing Imric on the field going with that what is that? The dragon horn or something like that, where it's essentially the wild hunt, but in terms of the high elves, so they get that nice little bit of bonus there. So it looks like RTK is still kind of refining their build. It's going to be rather interesting what they end up going with. I think if you look at the factions between ODM and RTK, I think RTK is probably going to be a little bit more predictable about what they're going to do. With the ODM factions, you can do 2 entirely different play styles. You can go heavy Cav Rush, you can go heavy Kite. Or you can do a mix of the 2, but I think their factions have more mobility or more versatility than what the RTK factions lend towards. Where, I mean, you still can to an extent, but I think, yeah, you're going to be seeing a more hardened battle lines with the Skaven, Coast, and High Elves. Both sides. Croissant Bert getting a little sleepy, waiting on RTK to finish up, but it looks like we're just waiting on Satsuma, and then we can get on into the final game of the day. And a second Satsuma. All right, all sides ready to go, and here we go. We're gonna load on in. So, oh yes, Kenny. So the match scores. Every battle. So the 1v1s are all 1 point. The 2v2s are worth 2 points, and the 3v3 is worth 3 points. So it kind of is just kind of two separate scores, or two separate clan wars for the two. It's just different structures. Or what this one is kind of the traditional one that, I mean, at least all of the clan wars that RTK has been hosting has been using this exact same format for quite some time. Since I've started streaming them, they've all been this way. All right, so we're loading on in. We'll switch over to that screen, and hopefully everything runs nice and smoothly. There's going to be a lot. Oh, that is a good sign. It was only a very short load in time, so it should be. So this is going to be the ODM side of things on the, I guess, the yellow balance bar. So they are going to be having Imric. So Imric is going to be rolling on in once I can just select Imric. So he does have his Star Lance, and he has the Dragon Horn, which is that 24 melee attack and can cause fear, which against Skaven can be quite helpful. So that is a map-wide ability, so giving fear to everything at once, and that does last for 16 seconds, can definitely help with that frontline engagement. A nice hit by all of the units at once. And we have Lord of Dragons as well, minus 24 melee attack, minus 40 melee, or minus 24 melee defense and minus 40 melee attack. And he has Martial Mastery. We do have a Mage of Fire coming in with Burning Head, Fireball, and the Cascading Fire Cloak. We have two of the War Lions of Trace, one of which is their Hagra's Pride, which does have that Roar, which gives a reduction to the leadership, so minus 8 leadership and minus 25 speed, so not that much, but against Skaven, the front line, that can definitely provide a nice little bit of a kick to cause everything to rout. And for the Bretonnians, it is going to be all cavalry. So we have Knights of the Realm, Grail Guardians, some very elite cavalry there. Going to be a little risky going up against a heavy gun line, but still, if they are nice and careful, can do some nice work. Knights of the Lionhearted for some bit of magical damage. Well, I mean, the Grail Guardians have that anyways. We have some Questing Knights as well, a couple of those. I did see the Fey Enchantress around here somewhere, so she does have not Awakening, but she has Dwellers Below. I've made this mistake before. Dwellers Below and Earthblood. She does also have just Arcane Conduit, and she has the Miss of the Lady, that nice little Mortis Engine drain. For the cavalry on the High Elves, or the forces of Imric, we do have double Dragon Princes in their lovely glory here. And this, not to be mistaken with the Fireborn, this is just the colors of Kalidor. And there is going to be some more Illyrian Reavers as well mixed into it that I saw on the side flank. So yeah, here are those Illyrian Reavers kind of thrown into the mix. I believe there's going to be some Knights of the Realm. I don't know what else I'm going to be missing here. A Spellsinger of Beasts for the Wood Elves. And that is not even Transformation of Kadan. That I don't recognize that one. So that one is Pan's Impenetrable Pelt, so physical resist and speed, which can help against that gun line. But the rest of the Wood Elves are vanguarded far in the front. We do have Orion, and then we have Wild Riders with Shields, Sisters of Thorn, more Wild Riders with Shields spread across into the tree line there. So it is a very, very heavy mobility game from the forces of ODM. And for RTK, we are going to be having Count Noctilus, going to be in the center ranks, but there is a lot of units here. So if we look at the numbers here, so we have 977 versus 3,243. So the funds, oh Kenny, so the funds for the 2v2s and 3v3s are 10,000 per person. So it's definitely going to be a smaller, so it's not going to be the full funds, but oh, this is going to be interesting to see if these Skaven RTK can hold back all of that cavalry. But for the rest of it, we have some Flamefire Phoenixes, we have some Illyrian Reaver Archers, which are going to be a little outgunned, I think, in terms of mobility here. So, but the Flamefire Phoenixes should provide a little bit of help with that kind of screening things out. We do have the Poison Wind Mortars, some Warplock Jezzails, some Globadiers, which Globadiers not probably going to be all too helpful, but the Jezzails will definitely be a lot more useful. Lothern Seaguard, good range units to kind of just help keep things at bay. Zombie Power Gunnery Mobs. And then there's going to be some Rat Ogres for a little bit of mass to try and hold back things. I am not too very confident in what RTK has. If ODM can control what they've got, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, 2 deck droppers with handguns. We have a Gunnery Wight that's going to be able to give some extra ammunition to all of the range units, specifically Noctilus. We do have Alariel the Radiant coming in with the Tempest. Not going to be any use here, but Earthblood as well as the Star of Avalorn. Noctilus has his Captain's Wrath Moondial. We have the his Wraithstorm, Invocation, and Raise Dead. And then if I can quickly go over everything before the tide of the ODM Cav Rush comes over the hill. Let's see, where is the Skaven? So we have a Skaven Assassin. Where is the Lord for the Skaven? We will find them before the end, maybe. Let's see, there's 1, 2... There it is. The bell that I've been hearing dinging is the Grey Seer Plague coming in, which it does have the Warpstone Scroll for that little damage to any flying units, particularly probably cautious of like Hawk Riders, but it is going to be Pestilent Breath. We have the Dreaded 13th and Pestilent, and just Pestilent Breath and the Dreaded 13th for the spells there. No Vermintide, just that would be at the limit for the summons there. Now into Red Dawn. So yep, look to the east as the cavalry rush of the Rohirrim descend down the hill against the Skaven and the Undead and a little High Elves mixed into it. But Noctilus is going to be firing away with his big guns on that Necrofex Colossus. Going to be doing some nice bit of damage to the cavalry on the opposing side. He does not have to be too cautious with his ammunition because he does have that Gunnery Wight to keep him nice and topped off. Jezzails as well. It's going to be a fire at will for sure as they just try and eliminate as much things. Right now they are trying to take out Orion as quickly as they can by the looks of things. Doing a nice bit of damage so far. So early damage pretty decent on them. But Illyrian Reavers have taken a bit, but they need to be very cautious. It is going to be a close all gaps in the formation for sure for RTK. It is a... This is going to be interesting as the ground shakes at the approach of all of the Glade Riders, the Wild Riders, all of the Dragon Princes descend down the hill. The elite units, the Questing Knights, staying up in the away from everything as they can, but except for these Grail Guardians. As I say, elite units are staying nice and safe. All of these Grail Guardians are getting hit by the Poison Wind, getting shot to pieces by Jezzails. We do get a Wraithstorm dropping down onto the Fey Enchantress. Alariel did take a bit of damage early on, but the crash of the charge is doing quite a bit of work. The Skaven Slaves routing kind of across the board. I probably did miss the initial Dragon Horn, but we do get a nice burning head going right down through these lines. It looks like we are going to be getting an Awakening of the Wood hitting both of the Warplock Jezzails, and that is going to be doing a bunch of damage to them. They need to try and get out of that little AoE spell, because it is going to be taken. I think it's just going to be outright finishing off both of those range units, and that is one of the good tools to deal with the oncoming rush of the Wood Elves and High Elves and Bretonnian cavalry. Oh my. But the Illyrian Reavers are going to be starting to turn their attention, trying to get into the backline. Or the Lothern Seaguard are going to try and kind of pull back themselves, give a little bit of a spear block to the charge of the Illyrian Reavers, and they will be able to hold back them. But this just massive infantry in this front line, it is just a slaughter. We have one of the Flamespire Phoenixes is going to be routing off. Now, if it does hit, it's both of the Flame Spires are actually getting pushed back. If they get both their regrowths, they'll be able to come back healthy as ever, and the assassin is trying to go for the lord or for the heroes, but Imric, he's gonna have a thing or two to say about that on his horse. He's actually probably gonna trade fairly well into that assassin, and that Grayseer just trying to get things going as best it can. But yeah, it is a mass rout on the fringes. We see those Giselles, a bunch of the Skaven are all going far away, but Balance Power is still dead even with that initial just charge of all of that cav. There is one dreaded 13th on the field. I did miss that initial cast. We get another Wraithstorm, this time dropping down onto Orion, who has taken a decent amount of damage, but Noctilus is kind of stuck in melee as there's just kind of a last little ring trying to hold back. But now we are going to be getting the Wild Riders hitting from the other side, so that Hammer and Anvil going to be slamming into the RTK forces here. And yeah, it's just so much death indeed, Steve. As, yeah, it is just a complete charge on both sides. Everything just collapsing on all fronts. But Balance Power is actually even slightly in the favor of RTK here, despite all that is happening. And there is, like, no battle lines. If we take a look at which side is which, you do kind of see a little staggered line on one side as they've been able to repel at least on the rear, and it is actually going to be freeing up Count Noctilus to again start firing away. Both of the Flamespire Phoenixes back again for some round 2 action, but the Grayseer getting quite low needs to pull out as the Fey Enchantress though is going to be terrified out the door, though Imric is going to be bringing down that Grayseer. We get a summon of the, I believe that's Captain's Wrath Moondial, into the middle of all of these things, as we get that Star of Avalon trying to heal up that Grayseer, but unfortunately the Grayseer does end up getting routed off. And if Alariel is able to get another heal off onto that Grayseer, might be enough to see it return to the field. I believe that as Pan's Impenetrable Pelt was on top of these Grail Guardians, but this very nice heal, especially with all these single entities in here, getting those Phoenixes up and operational once again, just holding back the Wild Riders. More shots coming in from all of these deck droppers with handguns, able to finish off the Spellsinger Beast, but not really the most important target to really get off the field. And surprisingly, against all odds, it looks like RTK is pulling ahead. The charge of the ODM cavalry is starting to just run out of steam at this point, as RTK pulling ever so slightly in favor, as all that healing really is kind of being a big factor as those Flame Spires. Alariel is at her healing cap herself, chasing down that Mage of Fire, and the Assassin is also quite healthy with really only Imric and most of the cavalry getting pushed back. We have some Questing Knights which will be able to get in and do some decent work. Dragon Princes are coming in, but Noctilus is doing a lot of work with that big cannon on his arm. And the Gunnery White as well, sitting nice and healthy. Plenty of ammunition left on those sides. And yeah, it looks like this is not going to be the glorious charge of the cavalry as was initially expected. I was not very confident in what RTK had to kind of hold that back. There was just so much cavalry. But it looks like, yeah, things are looking pretty good for RTK here. I mean, the only real thing is, like, I mean, you have Noctilus isn't really a melee lord here, but both of the Flamespire Phoenixes are collapsing on top of Imric, and Imric is going to be taking quite a bit of damage here, especially with that Assassin coming in, is going to be actually terrifying Imric off and might be breaking him completely. The Spellsinger is back. We still have some Illyrian Reavers. The Mage of Fire has escaped the initial attempt at her life, but that looks like that is going to be it. RTK somehow pulls it out, and man, oh man, we got, that was a scrap. That was a lot going on in there. Oh man, that was quite the final battle, and it ran very, very smoothly as well. So we'll go over all of these results, but yeah, that was... So let's see. So we have deck droppers with handguns both did very, very well. The rest of the forces, I mean, really, these zombie pirate deckhand mobs, 900 on these, 800 on these, that's not value you see from 1300 on these zombie pirate deckhand mobs. You don't see that kind of value, even against cavalry. Like, wow, that was something. Noctilus getting 3200, Gunnery White doing very well. High Elves, all these units, I mean, Lothran Seaguard did very well. I guess they just had enough spear units like the pole arms, and the Lothran Seaguard just lasted long enough. And the Skaven, the assassin did well. I mean, I'm not going to expect any of the Skaven slaves to do very well. The Poison Wing Globadiers did well. I mean, some of that's probably friendly damage, but still, I mean, the Mortars did well. Rat Ogres died very fast. But on the ODM side, the Cavalry Rush, some of the Wild Riders did some decent work. Orion, 2600, some nice value on him. For Lupi on Calidor, Imric did some nice work, but the two Dragon Princes did okay. The War Lions did actually probably better than most there. The Fey Enchantress getting some nice value as always. But yeah, just not quite enough momentum for the forces of ODM in that fight. And yeah, the Skaven, I guess, yeah, they blocked the initial charge, and then all the pole arms and the Lothran Seaguard and all that stuff just did enough to really just hold back the tide. So let's update. Oops, wrong one. So that means RTK does take the day at 6-5, taking that final 3v3. But man, yeah, that was something. Mordor wins as Rohan is unable to finish the job. That was a crazy fight for sure. Yeah, there's so many different aspects of that match. It's like, and it's kind of like one of the unfortunate parts was, it actually ran really, really smoothly, so it wasn't slowed down to see everything that was going on. You just kind of had to take a lot of things going on at once. But yeah, that was a lot of fun there in that final game. Yeah, I mean, most of the time it does actually come down to the 3v3. Actually, I say that. I think it's maybe like half the time it comes down to the 3v3. But yeah, that was a very fun game there. All fun builds. This is kind of like why I love doing these clan wars anyways, is that these 2v2s and these 3v3s, it just adds to like what you can do to these battles. Like the dynamic is just so much more interesting. It's like you see all these combinations that you're not going to be seeing otherwise, and it's so much fun seeing that, and it's always fun having all of this new, or I guess not necessarily new, but different tournament style of streams and stuff like that, which you're not going to be seeing too often. A little change of pace, but yeah, that's the last game of the day. Definitely a well played games on all sides throughout the day. So I think that's just going to be about ready to wrap things up on the day. And I think at this point, we're probably going to be seeing, if my son Herbert Walker hasn't started already, he's probably going to be streaming he might be streaming his tournament playoffs or the qualifier pretty soon. So that might be another stream popping up in the next hour or so. But usually he does Saturdays, so not sure if he'll be showing that or not. But yeah, I think without further ado, we're going to wrap things up here, unless anyone else has any closing comments before I do so. But again, I just want to thank you guys all for joining today. We had some very good numbers today. I saw it looks like we were up in the 90s at one point. Definitely one of the better turnouts that we've had. And thank you all for supporting the channel through all this. We finally hit 1,000 subscribers on this. I was planning to do a King of the Hill stream at some point, but it's been so busy today, so busy this past week. Well, hopefully we'll get one scheduled at some point with all of the World Championship streams and the recordings and all that. So it's been a busy last week, so hopefully looking forward to plenty more to come. But I think that's going to be all for today. Thank you all for watching. Just as I was about to say, when can we expect some new championship videos? So for that, we should have probably Tuesday, because I'm going to be doing another stream tomorrow. And then so Tuesday will probably be the next best of 5 series that I'll be able to cast. and then hopefully plan on doing one every day unless I'm going to be streaming a set of them. But otherwise, yeah, that's going to be the schedule kind of going forward. Is until the end of the tournament, it's either going to be some streams like this or it's going to be all WWC games. But either way, I should just wrap things up now. So now we are going to close things out, unless another comment appears in the last seconds before I click end stream. But again, thank you guys all for watching and supporting the stream, the channel, and all that. And I hope you have a great day, and looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one.